The day 5 of Advent of Cyber. What's happening in Wavell? What is the status of Mix Kitty? Let's find out in today's challenge. The elves of Werewell are on high alert since Mix Kitty went missing. Recently, the support team has been receiving many calls from parents who can't activate vouchers on Try Present Me website. They also mentioned they are receiving many targeted phishing emails containing information that is not public. The support team is wary and has enlisted the help of the Best Festival Company staff. When looking into this peculiar case, they discovered a suspiciously named account named Sir Caratobane, which has many vouchers assigned to it. For now, they have deleted the account and retrieved the vouchers, but something is going on. Can you help the Best Festival Company staff investigate the Try Present Me website and fix the vulnerabilities? So, today's learning objectives are to understand the concept of authentication, authorization, learn how to spot potential opportunities for insecure direct object references. So, in short, it's called as IDOR. Also, to exploit IDOR to perform horizontal privilege escalation. Then, finally, to learn how to turn IDOR into SDOR, which is secure direct object references. It's dangerously obvious, really. Have you ever seen the link that looks like this? They've given us the URL. It's called as awesome.website.thm. Track packages, and there is some package ID also given there, and it's 1001. When you saw a link like this, have you ever wondered what would happen if you simply change the package ID to 11 or 12? In its simplest form, this can be a potential case for IDOR. IDOR stands for Insecure Direct Object Reference and is a type of access control vulnerability. Web applications often use references to determine what data to return when you make a request. However, if the web server doesn't perform checks to ensure you are allowed to view that data before sending it, it can lead to serious sensitive information disclosure. A good question to ask then is, why does this happen so often? We need to understand reference and web development a bit more to answer this. Let's take a look at what a table storing these package numbers from our link example could look like. Now they've given us some databases table which has multiple columns like package IDs, person, addresses, and status. This is how a table would look if you are looking into your database where all your information like your account details or your shipping information or any products that you're hosting would look like. Now here we can see we have package IDs with starting from 1001 up to a sequence of higher digits incrementing as we look at the package IDs. It also package IDs are associated to a person, like in this case it's Alice Smith, Bob Jason, Carol White, and such usernames are associated with each of these package IDs, and they also are linked to their addresses and status of their products in this case. So this is a general view of a table, how you would be storing your information in any database. Now let's scroll down and see what is there for us. If the user wants to know the status of their package and makes a web request, the simplest method is to allow the user to supply their package ID. We recover data from the database using the simplest SQL query of select person address status from packages where package ID is equal to the value which the user submits. Now, breaking down this SQL query, we see that from the table packages, I am assuming this table that we are seeing here is called as packages. They are fetching the person's address and status's details with the query of the package ID. Meaning, by supplying the package ID, we can fetch the information of the person, their address, and the status of their package ID. So, for example, if I pass in 1001, I would get the information about who this person is, who is having the package ID 1001, and their address, whose package ID is 1001, and what is the status of their package, which is in our case, it's delivered. So that's what is happening when we just pass in the value of the package ID there. However, since package ID is a sequential number, it becomes pretty obvious to guess the package ID of other customers. And since web application isn't verifying that the person making the request is the same person as the one who owns the package, an IDO vulnerability appears, allowing attackers to recover the details for package belonging to other users. Even worse is when a feature like this doesn't require a user to authenticate. Then there would be no way to even tell who is making the request. To dive a bit deeper, we need to understand authentication, authorization, and privilege escalation. Now, there's a note for us from one of the co authors who says, I'm not a fan of the vulnerability named IDOR. I prefer name authorization bypass. If you want to understand my reasoning, expand here, but you don't need to be bored with the details. But in fact, I feel it's a very true thing and a very valid justification which the co author. Do we have the names of the authors of this room down below? No. But yeah, I feel this is a very validating point which one of the co-authors make, is that the full term insecure direct object reference sounds fancy, but it doesn't really describe what's going wrong. The direct object reference part just means that the system uses an ID. The example here is user/1 to point to something. That's not the problem. The real issue is the system doesn't check whether the person making the request is allowed to access it. A lot of people try to fix IDOR by hiding or encoding IDs. For example, changing user/1 to user and some random bits of data that might make it look harder to guess. But if the server still isn't checking permissions, it's just as insecure. The vulnerability isn't about how the object is referenced, it's about missing authorization checks. That's why I prefer to call it as authorization bypass instead. It explains exactly what's happening. Someone is bypassing the rules that decides who can see or change something. Whether the ID is a number, a hash, or a random string, the risk stays the same if the server doesn't verify access. You can read more here if you want. So there is some external URL being passed in. So I would not like to go with a deeper tangent from the room here. Identity defines our reach. To understand the root cause of IDOR, it's important to understand the basic principles of authentication and authorization. Authentication, the process by which you verify who you are. For example, supplying your username and password. Authorization, the process by which web application verifies your permissions. For example, are you allowed to visit the admin page of a web application, or are you allowed to make a payment using a specific account? You may think that authentication only happens once when you supply your username and password, but that is actually not the case. After providing your credentials, you receive a cookie or a token called session information. Every subsequent request you make to the application includes this session information, which is verified by the application. This initial verification process is still authentication and happens for each request. This is why websites will often redirect you back to the login page. It means your session information has expired, and thus you need to re authenticate with your credentials to receive new session information. Authorization cannot happen before authentication. If the application doesn't know who you are, it cannot verify what permissions your user has. This is very important to remember. If your IDO doesn't require you to authenticate, login, or provide session information, such as in our package tracking example, we will have to fix authentication first before we can fix the authorization issue for making sure the users can only get information about packages they own. The last bit of theory to cover: privilege escalation types. There are two types of privilege escalations. One is vertical and horizontal privilege escalations. So, vertical privilege escalation. This refers to privilege escalation where you gain access to more features. For example, you may be a normal user on the application but can perform actions that should be restricted for an administrator. Horizontal privilege escalation. This refers to privilege escalation where you use a feature that are authorized to use but gain access to data that you're not allowed to access. For example, you should only be able to see your accounts, not someone else's accounts. IDOR is usually a form of horizontal privilege escalation. You are allowed to make use of the track package functionality, but you should be restricted to only performing the tracking action for packages you own. Now that we understand the theory, let's look at how to exploit IDOR practically. Iterate digits, observe responses. Let's start with the simplest example of IDOR. On the web application, let's authenticate to the application using the details below. I'll copy the URL here, then open my browser and paste that here. Now I'm running a OpenVPN a VPN service in the background. That's the reason I'm just opening it in my browser itself. Now let's also copy the username, and did it not copy? Yes, it did. Let's paste that username. Now also copy the password and paste it right there. Now clicking on login, not enough. It gives us some dashboard here. It says account information. It sees my email address, which is niles@webmail.thm, my ID. Then it also gives my address, which is 42 Chili Street. My children, manage gift wishes for your children. So there are some vouchers and gift cards, and there are two requests here, but there are two different people from the date of birth. That's what I can see. We can also see my vouchers. Track your extra gift vouchers. So we have all these extra gift vouchers, and these are the used vouchers there. Okay. I'm just randomly clicking at the web page there. Let's get back to the page here and continue reading our place. Once authenticated, you should see a dashboard like this. Yes, we saw the dashboard there. Let's start by using the developer tool of our browser to better understand what is happening in the background. Right click on the page and click on inspect, then click on the network tab as shown below. We can do that by right clicking and clicking on inspect, or the other shortcut is Control Shift I. That also opens the same thing. Then we can go under the network tab. I'm supposed to reload to look at what information is actually being fetched. Let's click on that. Now let's refresh the page and see what requests are being made. It should look something like this. Yes, and we do see that here. We can see that it says view account information, user ID is equal to 10. Maybe that's where we can try to inject something. Let's take a closer look at the view account info request. Click on it and you will see the following. And we are able to see that right here. We can see there is a get request being made for the user ID with the ID being 10. And we are able to also see the responses and headers of the request that was being made. In the above image, we can see the user ID with the value of 10 was used for making the request. If we click the expand response tab, we can see the user ID corresponds to our user. Okay, let's go to the response tab here. And yes, we do see that it gives our username that we used for logging in, and also our email that we are presently seeing it on our web page. And more information is also present here: the first name, the last name, my ID, also the address, then address 2, the city, the state, the postal code, the country, also the children. I guess these are the pending voucher list and those information. This tells us the application is using user ID as a reference for getting details. Let's check what happens when we change this. In the developer tool, navigate to storage tab and expand local storage drop down on the left and click the URL inside it. So let's come back to the storage here. Then click on this. It says no data present. Let's just refresh it. Click on the page here. It still says nothing is present. Why could that be? Oh, it stays local storage. I'm sorry. So let's come to local storage, and yes, we do see here. We see authentication user, And you also see authentication token here. This is a very long token which basically says that we are logged in and these are our details there. And we can also see the authorized user, the authenticated user. We can see the user ID to be 10, email, and role. It says parent and name is Niels. Okay. We see those information stored in our web browser. Let's change the user ID to Lovin and see what happens. Double click on the value field on the auth user data entry, update the user ID to Lovin and save it by pressing enter. Now refresh the page. All of a sudden, it seems like you are completely a different user. Let's try that. Let's try to delete the value of 10 and replace it with 11. Press enter. Now refresh the page. We see it to be test at test.com. We get a different ID itself. It says one test lane. There is no children for this test account, and there are 6 vouchers like before itself. But we are a different user now. If I come here, the email and role looks different, but the user ID is what was the parameter that we just changed. Let's also reload this page so that we get a different view here. And here, looking at the response, we see that the user ID is 11 and the username is test, and the information about the test user is just present here. What about 12? What if I just come here, go to local storage and replace this with 12? What would I get there? Now refresh the page. It says test. Is it different? Was the number different before? Let's change it, and I want to just make sure that are we in a different user here. So it's 615. Now it's 688. So yes, indeed it was a different user itself. Yeah, so there are multiple users there. The simplest form of IDOS, simply changing user ID to something else, means we can see other users' data. Some IDOs might be slightly more hidden. Just because you don't see the direct number doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Let's dive deeper. To continue on to the next challenge of task, go and change the ID back to 10 using the same steps you followed above. Alternatively, you can log out of the application and log back using the username and the password. We'll change our user from this parameter itself, because now that we have learned, we are also equal to the level of hackers. So hackers don't log in, log out, and log in. I'm just being kiddish here. In disguise, obvious references. Sometimes IDOR may not be as simple as just a number. In certain cases, encoding may have been used. On the loaded profile, click on the eye icon next to the first child as shown on the image below. So we need to click on that. Okay, let's do that. Let's bring this little down and click on the eye. We see child ID is equal to 2, the child's name and the child's email ID, child's also ID, number ID, then the address and the parent's ID. So it's our number there. Now go back to the network tab and take a look at the request being made. You should see a request like this. Okay, let's go back to the network tab. And do we see any request being made? View account info is done. Is there anything specific? Yes, they say MGG. So it's MG equal to, not MGG. The header, we can see it to say file name, and we have, it looks like a base 64 encoded character, MG, then equal to in the last. Simply put, MGG is just the base 64 encoded version of the number 2. Yeah, indeed. You could still perform IDO using this request, but you would have to base 64 encode the number first. So let's try that out here. Let's copy this code. Now let's also open our CyberChef. It's a tool which I use for encoding and decoding contents on my stuff. So let's say from base 64, drag it and drop it. Yeah, indeed, it was just 2. Let's push this away and replace from to, then drag it and drop it here. Let's replace this to 3. Now let's copy this. It says the mw equal to. Can we go to the storage, local storage, and here can we change anything? This is the auth token, index GB, cookie. There is nothing there. But uh, if we have a web browser with the proxy in it, we could do that exploit. Let's just go a little tangent and see if this is possible. I've not tried it, so let's just try and see if that's possible. I'll open up my burp suit, the community edition that is present in this VM, and I've also set up the proxy there. Let's click on start, open this in full screen, and now uh, let it start, let it open. Now let's click on the proxy tab, intercept on. Let's click on the view icon and it made a request there. Now instead of this request going with mg, let's push this to the repeater tab, and from the repeater let's just see what response do we get. We see that it says child id is equal to 2, b lob, okay, and their date of birth. What if I replace this with w, which is equal to 3, and we do get that we are able to see the third child's id there. What about any other character? What is 4 called as? Let's replace that with 4. It's called as na. Let's replace that, and Johnny, that's the fourth user. So we do see that if, even though it's encrypted or encoded in this case, we are able to get IDOR being exploited here. That's interesting and that's fun. That also gives a lot of jump scares when we see IDOR in a web page like this. In digest, objects remain. Encoding isn't the only thing that can be used to hide potential IDO vulnerabilities. Sometimes the value may look like hash, such as MD5 or SHA-1. If you want to see what that would look like, take a look at the request that happened when you clicked on the edit icon next to the child. Okay, let's do that. Let's click on the edit icon and we get this page there. Let's go to the proxy here and in fact just forward all these requests. All that we want is from the IP address that we have selected there. So we see some MD5. I can also look at that MD5 from this value there, and this is the MD5 hash of it. Okay, the same thing is again seen from the web browser. If I come here and look at it through this parameter, or is it this or this? I'm not sure which one is it. Okay, a long syntax, I guess it is this itself. Header, okay, that is not loaded because it has been intercepted here. Let's turn it off and it's going to load here. Okay, we are able to see the hash there. While the string may look random, upon further investigation, you can see that this is a type of hash. If we understand the value was used to generate the hash, we can perform an IDO attack by simply replicating the hash function. Using something like a hash identifier can help you quickly understand what hashing algorithm is being used and can often tell you what data was hashed. Let's open that and look at it. So let's copy the hash that we got from this tab. Let's copy that. Paste it in here, then click on, let's also include all possibilities and click on submit and identify. It says possible identification is this, that let's say MD5 hash. I mean, it does says it's MD5 and it's telling us possible combinations of it. We already had identified it's an MD5 hash. It is deterministic, obviously reproducible. Sometimes you have to dig quite deep for IDO. Sometimes IDO is not as clear. Sometimes the IDO stems from the actual algorithm being used. In this last case, let's take a look at our voucher. While the values may look random, we need to investigate what algorithm was used to generate them. Their format looks like a UUID, which is Universal Unique Identifier. It's basically a value used for identifying. So let's use a website such as UUID Decoder to try and understand what UUID format was used. Copy one of the vouchers to the website for decoding, and you should see something like this. Okay, let's copy the vouchers. Let's remove that. Let's copy this voucher and come here and paste that in. Then click on decode UUID, and we see standard string format is this, single integer values. Okay, the version is 1, variant is 1. Okay, we see some information being presented to us there. While these look completely random, we can see that UUID version 1 was used. The issue with UUID 1, that if we know the exact date when the code was generated, we can recover the UUID. For example, suppose we knew elves always generated voucher between 20 hours to 21 hours. In that case, we can create UUIDs for that entire time period. That is 36,000 UUIDs, since we have 60 minutes and 60 seconds in a minute, which we could use in a brute force attack to aim to recover a valid voucher and get more gifts. Now that we have seen the various IDOs that can be found, let's discuss how to fix them and avoid them. Improve design, obliterate risk. Now that we have learned about IDOR, let's discuss how to fix it. The best way to stop IDOR is to make sure the server checks who is asking for the data every time. It's not enough to hide or change ID number. The system must confirm the logged in user is authorized to see or change the information. Do not rely on the tickets like base64 or hashing the IDs. Those can still be guessed or decoded. Instead, keep all the real permission checks on the server. Whether a request comes in, check, does this user own or have permission to view this item? Use random or hard to guess IDs for public links. But remember that the random ID alone don't make any app safe. Always test your app by trying to open another user's data and making sure it's blocked. Finally, record and monitor failed access attempts. They can be earlier signs of someone trying to exploit an IDOR. Okay, now let's get to the questions here, answering today's questions. What does IDOR stand for? It is Insecure Directory Direct Object Reference. ENCE. Yeah. What type of privilege escalation are most IDOR cases? It is horizontal. Yes, that's correct. Exploiting the IDO found in the view accounts parameter. What is the user ID of the parent that has 10 children? Okay, we need to go to the view accounts parameter. Let's find where is that view accounts parameter. Let me close this here, and we can see that it has how many children's? Are we able to see the number of children's here? Were we able to see it here? Okay, let's open it here and see what were the count of children that we actually saw. Let's go here and to the responses. Do we see user IDs there? But do we see the number of children? Okay, we have 5 children there. Now, what if I change? You know what? Let me refresh this page, but this time do it through the proxy because it's a little fun there. Let's send it to the repeater and send this here. Say it's not modified. Okay, that is a little difficult then. So forget about proxy. Let's turn it off and come to memory here, storage, local storage, and replace this with let's say 11 and refresh the page. Go to the network tab here, what do we see for this user? How many children does there is 0 children? What about 9? Is there anything for the user who is at 9? 9. Enter, press refresh. Uh, there's no children there too. Okay, what about uh, 12? We found no children again. What about 13? Or let's go for yeah, let's go for 13 itself. Press enter, then refresh. How many children do this user have? 0 children. Okay, let's look at the hint to see what could possibly be the hint for this. Use the task example, change the ID of the change ID of your token. Using the task example, change the ID value of your token and refresh the page. Work in incremental steps from your user's ID. Let me know what. Okay, that's what we are doing. Then let's look at more number of users, possibly like 14 or 15, and we would get some information. Let's go for 14. Enter, network, refresh, come to the user 14. We see 2 children to be present. Okay, let's go to storage once again. What about 15? Press enter, then refresh. Okay, there seems to be a lot of users in this case. Oh, there is 10 users. That's great. The answer is 15. Is that right? Yes, that is right. Now, bonus task. If you want to dive even deeper, use either the base 64 or MD5 endpoints to try find the ID number of the child born on this year. To make the iteration faster, consider using something like burps intruder. If you want to check your answer, click on the hint on the question. I'm going to skip that part as of now because I want you all to try, because I've shown how I did it using burpsuit. So probably you can try it out on your own. Bonus task, it's another bonus task. So I'll just skip that and click on check and check here. With that, we have finished today's challenge of IDO. I'm excited for uh, today's, I mean, in the sense that I'm recording this on the day 6th when it's going to be released. In some hours, we'll be opening with the day 6. So yeah, I'm excited for malware analysis because that's my favorite stuff that I deal in my work offline. So excited for it. So till then, so till the day 6 of Advent of Cyber, um, go on exploring different rooms and different challenges that is present in TryHackMe. So till then, stay happy, stay smiling. Meet you on the next video. Bye bye. Thank you for watching.